We had some
No.
technical difficulties, okay? It's always production, always production. But anyway, I'm so happy that we were able to make it and that you guys are viewing us this evening. So thank you so much for your patience. It is October, and as you guys are aware, it is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is me, Carla, your host of the podcast entitled I'm My Sister's Keeper. My Sister's Keeper was created so that women would have a safe space to come and discuss everyday topics that affect our well being while keeping it real, raw, and uncut. This evening, we have in the building Karen Valentine, who kicked cancer's ass. We're happy to have you, Karen. I am
Thank
going
you.
to let you take it away. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Take it
Bye.
away, Karen.
Thank you. Well, let me see. February, I suppose it all started really February 2019. I went for a routine mammogram. Everything was normal. I received the written statement the um, from the radiology team, and they said that my breast tissue, everything came back normal, and that I have fibrous breasts, but which I already knew, but I don't have to, there's nothing there, and I don't have to worry about it. Um, but they did have a disclaimer on there. They did say that women with fibrous breasts, it is more of a chance of there being breast cancer because of the fact of how the fibers in the breast tissue, um, how they lay out. Basically, it can hide and mask a tumor. So I thought everything was fine. Come 6 months later, at the time I was 1 year from being divorced. I was looking after my grandsons, and I had taken one of the boys. Well, actually, they had some kind of open house at school, and before the open house, they always do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I just naturally put my hand over my chest to do the Pledge of Allegiance and felt a lump. Um, and it was a pretty big lump. And I thought at the time, oh, it's probably a cyst. It's probably nothing to worry about. I'm not going to really have any alarms about it. But as maybe like a few weeks went by, I noticed that the thing was kind of getting larger, and it was feeling a little bit more inflamed. So I said, you know what? I'm going to my doctor's anyway. Let me ask him about it. So I went to my doctor for a regular checkup. You have to go there to refill your medicine. And I asked him about it, and he touched the area and he said, yes, it did feel kind of warm. And he said, well, let's be very sure. Let's go and get a mammogram on that, another mammogram, a little bit more in detail. And so that's what I did. I went to the where I live in Birmingham, Alabama. There's two medical centers, so I went to, well, there's more than two, but the two that I'm talking about, I went to St. Vincent's Medical Center, and that's where they did the first mammogram, kind of just to diagnostic mammogram, a little bit more in detail than a regular one. And after I kind of waited for the results from that, in the waiting room, the ladies came back and said, the radiologist thinks she sees something on there. Can we have you come in, and we want to do a sonogram? At that point, I started to get a little nervous, to be really honest, because I just thought it was a cyst, fibrous tissue. I didn't really think it possibly could be cancer because I had had the mammogram in February. So this is now um, late September or mid September. So it's not that far along. And for me to have this growth out of nowhere, it was really a shock to me. So I went and they did the sonogram. And after they did the sonogram, they said that the radiologist has looked at it and she's going to send the report to my doctor. So I was a little bit nervous about it because I really had not gone to that level with the doctors before, and it started to be like a little real. What after that, my in a few days, my doctor called me back and said that, in fact, the radiologist did see something on the sonogram as well as on the mammogram, and that they needed me to come in to have a biopsy. So I went in to see I didn't realize this at the time, but she was a breast surgeon, and I went to go see her. At the time when I walked into I remember there was maybe 20 or 30 people that were in that room. It was a small room packed with people, and just had this kind of air of like sadness. It was just really, really depressing. Um, and of course, I was nervous as anything. I didn't have anybody with me, nobody for support. And unfortunately, that day, the doctor's office, they were running behind. And I mean, when I say that they're running behind, they were running 2 to 3 hours late. And I sat there for around 2.5 hours waiting for my turn, really worried and anxious about not only my results, but the biopsy, because I didn't know what a biopsy was. I didn't know how it entailed. I didn't know anything. Finally, um, a, a lady came and called me, and I went into one of the medical rooms, and they asked me to change, etc. And I sat on the little bed thing that they ask you to sit on, and she had um, a sonogram machine and put stuff on me and started to kind of look at the mass where it was. And at the time, I was just so nervous. I was just so nervous. I was terrified because nobody really nobody really told me anything. It just, I went from having a good mammogram to having a lump, to it being a sizable lump, to me going to get a sonogram, them telling my doctor that they believe it's a tumor, and then after that it was like, here I am, and I'm getting a biopsy, and I have no clue what even a biopsy even entails. Um, at that point, a lady comes in. She's really rushed and hurried. She introduces herself as my as the doctor, and she starts to talk to the nurse, and then she brings out this metal tube thing, and it's maybe around 8 to 10 inches long, and she proceeds to start to spray me. And then I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Like, because I don't know what she's doing. All I know is that she came in and she's talking, but she's not explaining to me. And she said, well, you know what you're here for, right? And I said, well, yes, but I don't know what you're going to do. Like, I haven't got a clue what you're going to do. And so then she explains what she's going to do. She's going to put this thing, I think she called it a cannula, into my breast. She's going to inject my breast with something to numb it. Then she's going to put this cannula in there, and it's going to take, basically, it's going to kind of pinch away it's got a kind of, it's like a tube, and it has like this little thing that kind of goes through and it grabs flesh and pulls it through. And that's what the biopsy does. And then they put this flag, they insert a flag where the tumor is to point to it so that anybody else will know where the tumor is located. Um, she did it. It hurt quite a bit. I think, I'm not sure if it hurt more because she didn't explain it to me, so I was really high stressed, or if it really did hurt more. I have no clue. Um, but that was the beginning of my journey. Um, I remember leaving the the medical office, and there was one last patient in there waiting. She was an African American lady. She was maybe around in her late 60s, maybe 70s. She had two relatives with her, I think female relatives. She was bent over, falling asleep. And I thought to myself, I am not going to be, I am not going to be coming back here. I'm definitely not going to have this place. Um, I'm not going to let this place be the people that take care of me in regards to this. Is too important, because I really thought, you know what, if this lady, they're treating this lady so terribly. I think it must have been, I must have left there like around, I know it was after dark, so it probably was around 7 o'clock, maybe 6 or 7. And I had had a 3 o'clock appointment. And there was this lady there who looked like she was genuinely in pain. And I just thought it was too wrong. So luckily for me, I spoke to my cousin about it. My cousin is was a nurse, surgical nurse at Montefiore Hospital in New York, one of the largest chains in the country, medical hospitals in the country. And I explained everything, and she said, well, you know what? That's terrible. No patient should ever go through that experience. And so she said to me, well, you know what? I'm going to go look in the peer-to-peer reviews, and I'm going to find you a new breast surgeon. Because she's like, no, 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 no. Nobody's going to treat my cousin that way. So she did some research and then came back to me in a couple days, and she told me about Kirkland Clinic, which I'd always heard about Kirkland Clinic, but I really didn't know much about Kirkland. And she told me about Dr. Contreras, who ended up being my surgeon. And it just ended up simultaneously that Dr. Contreras had, when I looked her up, there was a New York Times article about her being one of the top 5 breast surgeons in the country. And then I knew that, because my cousin had said that she had had really top peer reviews, which are reviews by other doctors and other surgeons. They basically review the person. And I knew at that point that that's where I wanted to be. So I made the appointment to be with Kirkland Clinic. Meanwhile, the other doctor was calling me, and they gave me the results of my biopsy over the phone. It wasn't even the doctor. It was like, one of the receptionists called me and said, oh, I want to let you know that, yes, your biopsy came back positive for cancer, and we'd like to make an appointment with you to come back in. There was no There was no compassionate, like, we'd like you to come in so that the doctor can talk to you. There was nothing. It was just kind of like cut and dry. And I was just like, it's just irritating. But I did go back there for that one last time. I went with my girlfriend Nicole, and I remember when I walked in there and saw that room full of people, I walked up to the front desk and I said, you know what? The last time I was here, I sat here for 3 hours. I will not be doing it again. In fact, if I don't see the surgeon in 45 minutes, I'm walking out that door, and I don't care what your report says. And that's exactly what I did. And they saw me. I suppose they they knew that, they didn't want me to kick up a fuss, because I was just like, I am not going to be treated that way. And I I I remember the surgeon actually bringing myself and my girlfriend Nicole into her office and waiting there, and us sitting going, you know, she was talking to us like we were stupid. And it was just so demeaning. She was like, well, these things, they take time, and this and that, and there's other people in front of you. And I just felt like, I understand there are people in front of me, but if you make an appointment at a certain time, I shouldn't have to sit here for 3 hours, or else I can come 3 hours later and be there for my own time. I don't want to be stuck in this room, especially at the time. To make it even worse, that time was just when COVID was starting to really become a problem, where it was around, let me see, I suppose it must have been like the first week in November. So COVID had already come to America, and, it was already a problem. And I don't want to be stuck in that room for how many hours just sitting there. So anyway, the doctor, she explains to me that I have breast cancer and where the breast cancer is. She has a little folder ready for me with the type of cancer that I have. And there was like a little 3-pager booklet, what the procedure is and what type of cancer and where it is. She didn't really go over any of that with me. She just drew on the paper how she's going to work on my breast. And basically she drew a circle for the breast, and she drew a line, and then she said, well, we're going to take extra tissue so that we're going to capture all of it. And then after you do the surgery, then we're going to do the radiation. And so this is what's going to happen. And of course, I just sat there and kind of nodded her and nodded and nodded and nodded. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'm going to get out of this shit show ASAP and go to the other doctors. I just can't wait. I mean, I just can't wait to get out of here. She never told me options. She never told me think about it. She never asked me, what my thoughts were. She just told me this is what's going to happen. And I went, she immediately escorted me to her scheduler. She was like, okay, well, we're going to schedule you now. And she immediately took me to her scheduler and my girlfriend, Nicole. When we walked into the scheduler's office, there was papers stacked high, like this high, of people's folders on her desk. And I'm sitting on the other side, my girlfriend's sitting beside me, and we're looking at these papers. And I remember seeing like a Chinese menu sticking out in between the menus. And I was concerned about the aesthetics of how my breasts are going to look after surgery. The scheduler says to me, oh yes, Dr. So-and-so, she's excellent at construction. She will take care of you. She's selling me. Okay. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at mushu soup on the menu, and I'm thinking, how on earth is she going to take care of me? I can see a menu. There was a Lay's paper chip bag on the end of her desk where maybe she had decided to have potato chips and then she just left it there. I'm thinking to myself, her office is a complete mess. How is she, like, my paperwork's going to be just laying on this woman's desk? The woman like wrote some information down for me. She wrote a date. She scheduled me for a date for my surgery, which I said, you know what? I am not coming back for this surgery. And I said, you know what? Sure, I'll come back. Never came back, never came back, never called them. Um, I ended up, um, my appointment for the Kirkland Clinic was 2 weeks later. I had an issue in January with my health insurance, and I had to wait until February to get in to the Kirkland Clinic. And the other office, they were trying to schedule my surgery, but they were having a problem with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, because of the fact of there was this lapse of insurance. So I went to Kirkland Clinic. It was a completely different experience. They had me meet with my my complete team. I had Dr. Contreras, which was the surgeon. I had her nurse. I had Dr. Nabel, who was the oncologist, and I had her nurses. I had Dr. Boggs, who was the radiologist, and his nurses. I had 7 people, 8 people in the room with me when I met with them. And they basically explained what the situation was, what they saw on my all of my tests, because they had gotten everything from the other hospital. And basically they explained what they felt that the course, their professional, um, what their professional opinion was for the course of treatment for me. It was completely different. Um, they didn't pressure me. They didn't sell me. They said, you know, this is what we think we'd like to do. We want to first treat you with um, a course of chemotherapy. The chemotherapy is going to be a little tough. It's going to be for around, I think it was around 3 or 4 months of chemo, and I would lose all my hair. Um, and but the reason being for the chemo was the oncologist wanted to reduce the size of my tumor, and she felt that based off of the type of tumor I had, she would have a very, very great chance of reducing its size. Therefore, my surgery would not have to be as invasive, and I would be left with a better result in the end. I was, you know, they had said, well, I could choose that, or I could choose a lumpectomy, or I can choose a mastectomy. It was either decision, whatever I wanted. They didn't rush me. They asked me, do I have any questions? They explained everything to like such a fine detail for me that when I left there that day, I felt so confident I was in the right place. Um, After that, um, I decided that I was going to choose the lumpectomy with the chemotherapy on the front end, the surgery, and then I was going to have the radiology at the back end. Um, and um, at that point, I had started, let me see, I met them on the first, probably like the 1st of February, because that's when my insurance kicked back in. By the 10th of February, I was already in the chemotherapy unit, getting the chemotherapy. And it was an experience. I mean, well, actually, not even the 10th. First, what they did, they place a port into your chest, to because they have to have a place where they would administer the chemotherapy. So they have this instead of doing through your veins, because with the chemotherapy, it can make, if you keep on going to a vein, it can make the vein collapse. So they, what they do is that they put a port in your chest and it links in through your neck and goes directly into your heart. Um, they did that, and I know it sounds crazy. Like, I lived nearly a year. Actually, I lived a year with something foreign sticking into my heart. But it wasn't as strange as it sounds. In fact, I was actually really, after a while, I just got used to it being there. I would go to my doctors, and they would have this thing called, it's basically a numbing spray, and they would spray, and I would ask them to just keep on spraying the thing and kind of freeze it so that they could put the the it's like an IV, but it goes directly into your chest, and that's where you get all of the chemotherapy and all of the medicine. And that started, I remember the first day, actually, I went, my girlfriend Nicole went with me, as well as my youngest daughter. And crazy as it be, my daughter ended up being diagnosed with flu. So she had to leave because she was getting really sick. And as I don't know if you all know, but when you are getting chemotherapy, your immune system is very, very weak. So she had to leave so that she would not infect anybody else with the flu. Um, but my girlfriend Nicole and I, it was, I laid there, and they had this beautiful pods, these beautiful rooms where it was like frosted glass, and it Florida glass windows, and you would just lay in this recliner, watch TV. You could order food if you wanted. That was just before coronavirus and all the restrictions, and before it hit the hospitals. And you could, and I remember my first day, we were sitting there. Basically, I was eating pizza and just having a good time and laughs with my girlfriend. And I did have, I did sleep. It was very tiring, very tiresome. But that night, my course was very long that first day, and towards the end, I started to have some reaction to the chemotherapy. If I can remember correctly, I think it was either my back was hurting or I was getting cramps, and they had to send me to the emergency room. And that was an experience all to itself, because then, going to the emergency room, it was just my first time with chemo. And then on top of it, when I went to the emergency room, I've got the emergency room was bustling with people that had just come down with coronavirus. And I remember me having like an N95 mask on, and my girlfriend was there with me, and she had to have an N95 mask on because she was hanging out with me and just spending time. And she stayed with me at the hospital. And it was really crazy in the emergency room, because you would think, okay, this is a cancer patient. It's a cancer patient. She's got these side effects, and I'm in a room, and then they put me in another room. Then they leave me there. They completely forget. I think it was because of the fact that they were just so overrun with people that were really sick from coronavirus. They put me in a room in the emergency room, and they were and waiting for a room for me to be able to stay in, but there weren't any rooms. Um, After that, the next day, I was just like, you know what? I just want to go home. I just want to go home and I want to go sleep in my own bed. And they checked me out and they let me go. And that's basically the beginning journey of my cancer. Um, from then it was, I've got to, I remember that first day because my mother was, what should I say, is very negative about doctors, uh, primarily because my grandmother had breast cancer. My brother had a double mastectomy, and she ended up dying right after her first chemotherapy treatment. She ended up having, um, I believe it was side effects from medicines that she was on, and she ended up dying. And so my mother, it was challenging for my mother to be very positive about my standard of care. Um, my mom thinks pretty much like all doctors are full of quackery and um, shouldn't be trusted. But I basically decided within myself that I was going to trust my team because they were so professional and they explained everything. Even the nurses in the chemotherapy, they explained every single medicine that they were going to put in my body, what I could feel, what side effects, if I started to feel them, what I should do, what I should tell them. Um, they treated me um, like I really meant something. I wasn't just a number or a piece of flesh. They really went above and beyond to make me feel comfortable in this really distressing process. And I think that, you know, for for me, I I I really, took a lot of solace in that. I was able to, as the time went on, build confidence in them, and that they had my best intention. They had my best intentions at heart. They wanted to save me, and they wanted to cure me, and they wanted to, for me, not to be a negative statistic. Um, I know that for Black women, we tend to not take care of ourselves. You know, um, I had to be honest. I mean, with myself, actually, there was a woman, I was working in this company, and Black woman came in and she asked me, "Oh, have you gone to UAB to get genetic testing for breast cancer?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Well, you should get it done." And this is way before I found out I was diagnosed with cancer. She was like, "Oh, you should get it done because, once you know, then they could do something about it and they can help you so you never ever get cancer." And I remember this woman coming in two other times and asking me, "So have you gotten it done yet?" And I was like, "No, I'm sorry. I haven't gotten it done. I've just been busy working." And it was later on that year that I was diagnosed. And I think to myself, if I had gone when she said to go, they probably would have seen that I had the gene. It ended up that I had the HER2 positive gene, which is basically the gene that is driven by your estrogen levels. And so, as my estrogen levels were too high, or my estrogen was basically creating this tumor in my body. And my surgeon had to not only take out my the tumor, but they had to take out my sentinel nodes underneath my armpit. Luckily, I was blessed in the fact that you know I'm I'm relatively young, and and they were really, really, really good. So um, I did not have to. Um, I did not have to deal with edema, like a lot of women have to deal with swelling in their arms and swelling on this. Well, this was the side, my surgery side. So on my left side of my body, I didn't get edema. I didn't get it in my ankles, in my arm, or anything like that. And I just really believe that, you know, Black women, we have to move on from the stigma. Not only Black women, but men also. Men can get cancer, and breast cancer, and we just have to really do something about it. If we do feel a lump, jump on it and really, you know, get on top of it. Because if you don't, you know, I mean, I went from feeling nothing and having a positive mammogram test to like having a stage 2 cancer in 6 months. And that's crazy. And, if I had waited any longer, if I'd waited another year, it would have been stage 3 or 4. And I could have been really, in problems. And, you know, cancer, I say that cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me because it really enabled me to focus myself not only upon what's important in life, but my children. I really realized, you know what, I've got these children and they're not little kids, but they're in their teens and early 20s, and one's in her early 30s, and I've got grandchildren. But you know what, though, they want me around. They want me around. And my son said to me one time, he goes, Mom, you know what, you have cancer, but when you were diagnosed with cancer, we all got cancer, and we all are suffering because the fear for them. And I kind of, when I told them that I had cancer, I waited until I saw the other doctors, and I waited until they had a plan. And I kind of told the kids, well, you know what? I have cancer, but we have a plan. And this is what the plan is. Because I didn't want to leave them just, my mom's got cancer and I don't know what on earth we're going to do. Like, I just thought, okay, we got a plan and this is what we're going to be doing. So, Carla, I'll open it up to the floor. If anybody has any questions, or,
I
I'm here.
I I want to say thank you for being so candid because this is such a huge topic. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many people in my life that have passed away from cancer. And so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even really introduce you properly when we first started because it's important that we discuss it. But my God, I really don't want to talk about it because it's just it's horrific. Um,
It has to be talked about.
Breast cancer is the most common cancer in American women, except for skin cancer. The average
Mm-hmm.
risk of a woman in the United States developing breast cancer sometime in her lifetime is about 13%, which means one in every 8 women can experience this. It has to be addressed, but it's extremely emotional. I'm sure it's
Mm-hmm.
emotional for other people, but for me, my God. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing that because you really gave us an insight of what right looks like. Now, I do want to address a comment that you made about going to the doctor's office and her receptionist Charmaine, I have no idea what the woman's name was, had a Chinese menu sticking out the sides of the piles of documentation that she had on her desk, which is horrifying because those
Mhm.
documents belong to someone's mother, someone's aunt, someone's sister,
Mhm.
someone's
Mhm.
cousin, someone's wife. How dare you? How
Right.
dare you? So, luckily, you were able to confide in a relative who told you, hey, listen, I think you should try this facility versus the one that you originally went to. For any woman
Mhm.
who goes to a doctor and does
Mhm.
not feel, woman or man, anyone,
Right.
and you
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable, if you're looking around your surroundings and they're not clean, because I'm huge on tidiness, I am.
Right.
If
An
it's
organization.
if it's filthy and unorganized, I gotta go because
Right.
I'm
Right.
gonna want to start
Exactly.
cleaning and
Exactly.
organizing. I'm gonna want to start cleaning and organizing, and I can't mentally. I can't take it. If
Right.
you are in a surrounding that is not clean, if you are in a surrounding where it's unorganized and where the doctor comes to you with a sheet of paper and draws a circle on the paper and tells you we're going to cut this and do this and do, how in the world are you supposed to understand that when you have no idea what's going on and you're going to professional people for professional help and you need someone to explain the situation from soup to nuts and she draws a piece of paper on a circle on paper? Unacceptable. So if anyone
Right.
encounters that, please understand there's more than one doctor. Please understand there's more than
Yes.
one doctor. You may have to do a little research, but if you're not comfortable with an interaction that you've had with one doctor, please seek out medical assistance elsewhere because your life
Mhm.
means more than just sitting on top of someone's desk having a Chinese menu shoved in between it.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
unacceptable, Karen.
Yeah. I
That's
mean, I mean, and the thing about it, when I was sitting across, I was looking at people's files, and I was just like,
unacceptable.
"This is
Unacceptable.
surreal. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
seeing this stuff." I mean, it was on like as soon as you walked in the door. File. I don't know if they were just reorganizing and they just had to stack everything in her office.
But
All
that's
I know is that
confidential. That
all
information is
yeah, that's
confidential. It shouldn't be
confidential.
out like that.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be
right,
out like that.
exactly. It
And the
shouldn't be
folders
out
are
like
on
that.
your desk. Do people need medicine? Do they need to be scheduled for surgery?
Right,
Do they need to be scheduled for I mean, I'm no doctor and I don't work at a doctor's office, but for me, when you
right,
talk about organization and you're talking about you have people's lives in your hands, my God,
right,
could you act like you give a damn? How about that? Can
right,
you act like you give
right.
a damn?
That's how I felt. I mean, I really felt like you're just doing this for the dollars, for the. I mean, even the way the doctor came in and she was like, I had been. She told me, I think if I can remember correctly, she goes, "Oh, the reason why I want to apologize. The reason why we were so behind was because one of my sonogram technicians, had broken her leg that morning." And I thought to myself, I said, you know what? If she had broken her leg that morning, back and told them, you know what, we've got too many people on the schedule. Like, could we possibly move you to an hour later, 2 hours later?
How
Like,
about
so you're
if
not sitting in the room,
how
right?
about if you have people waiting, you offer them beverages, you offer some type of
Right,
lunch, you offer to reschedule an appointment, and folks took cabs to the facility, you pay for a
right.
taxi service to send them home. And how about the woman that stooped over in pain? Why is
Mm.
she sitting there for 3 to 4 hours? Karen, Karen,
Yeah, I
Karen,
was disgusted. I was really,
absolutely not.
really, I
Why
was
is she
really,
sitting there for 3 to 4 hours with no one assisting her? Why is she sitting there like that? So
and
if
I don't
it
know, I
had
don't,
been anyone else that day or four people, she should have been one of the four. I'm not saying that other folks' situations are not, I'm not saying any of that. But obviously, you have someone in your office that needs medical assistance immediately.
right. Well, that
Unacceptable.
second time when I went back, I was like, look, I was here. a week and a half ago, and I'm not sit. I told them, I walked up to the thing and I was like, I am not going to be sitting here for 3 hours. So if I don't, and it shouldn't take me getting
Uh,
aggressive with the girl in the front. And I'm
I
like,
would
I
have
don't
been
know
aggressive
who
if it
you.
had been my family member.
Yeah,
They would have.
I know.
Oh
I would have
God,
been,
they would have escorted me out
I
the
don't
door
know.
now because
I
I
don't
would have
know
been.
who you need to talk to, but I need to be seen in 45 minutes or else I'm out the door.
I would have even
And
spoke up for the woman that was sitting there in pain. I would have spoke up for
no,
her
that
because
lady,
that's disturbing.
that was another date.
Oh,
That was the
okay.
tape
I would have
before.
spoke up for her because that was disturbing to me. That disturbed my
That
soul just
that
hearing
did
you
disturb
tell the
me.
story. Absolutely not. I
Hmm.
would have spoke up for her.
I'll never forget her. I'll never forget
I
her
would have spoke up
because
for
I
her.
remember, because it was dark out. I remember when I walked in there, it was, the sun was still up, but when I left, the sun was down,
Unbelievable.
and that
Unacceptable.
woman was sitting there, and I just, you know what? It's just like,
The Twilight Zone.
it's like one of those things. People, how they're being treated when they're on Medicare,
Oh,
or when they're on some other, like,
a
an
government
elder, and
issued.
a government issued health care, because of the fact of the way it was just
But
like.
it's
but,
interesting
but you know
because
what though,
I can't
when I was
really
sitting.
say that. There are places that
Yes.
give folks with government assistance
Hmm.
in regards to health insurance. It just seems like that place that you originally went to was a hole in the wall.
I mean, and you know what, the thing about it, it wasn't a hole in the wall. It was in a
Oh,
prestige. It was actually in a, a very good hospital, but she was just a mess. Personally, I think
so
she had
maybe
alcohol
she
problems,
was
but
horrific, but right. There are lots
yes,
of government.
this.
Yeah, there are lots of
Right.
hospitals who take government
Hmm.
um, insured
Hmm. Hmm.
insurance and treat people
Yeah,
very well.
and
So
treat people with dignity,
yeah,
and
it just
teach
seems
people
like
with
maybe
dignity. It just happened. I
that
think it was.
particular doctor,
Yeah,
her
exactly,
opinion was
exactly. I
out
mean,
the
and
window.
yeah, and I mean, like, I remember sitting there the first time and seeing other women, white women, younger women, walking out with the same folder that I left with. So the folder thing wasn't just for me. You know, when I went to the other doctor, they showed me my imagery on the screen. Karen, this is your breast. That is your tumor. This is the section that we're going to work on. This is the size of your tumor.
And
We're going to work
the
on
other
it.
lady drew the picture on the paper and said, "Okay, this is here. At this point, look at the dot." What the hell
Yeah,
does
this is
that
this.
mean?
This is the shade. Like shade. Like she drew it. She drew it, and then she did
Oh
like an arc.
God!
She did like a center thing, and then an arc, and then she did some like hatch marks to
And
say that
what
she
the
would
hell
take
is that
out
supposed to
this
mean?
part and this part, and then stitch it back together
What
again.
does that mean,
And I
Karen? What
thought,
does that
and
mean?
really, I was thinking, is what shape will my breast be left in?
Poppy
Because
milk.
you you could be, you can cut an orange, but how are you going to stitch it back that the orange is not going to be all warped and disfigured? And I'm like, no, no. I mean, I was, and even with my surgeons, that was one of my biggest fears, was I going to have like a dart? Was I going to have a dart? Was I going to have, like, was I going to have a dent? Was I going to have, like, where the flesh was taken out and it was going to be concave? Was it
Oh,
going
like
to,
an
like,
indentation. Yeah.
yeah, was there going to be an indentation? Was there going to be, like, what was it going to look like? And I mean, my scar literally is around an inch long, and it's perfectly seamless. It's flat. You know,
So it's not
um,
noticeable. It's not noticeable.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
that's great.
It's not. It's not. there's no, she did an extremely good job
It just looks
stitching it
regular.
up.
It just looks regular.
It just looks like a line on my skin.
Oh, that's excellent.
And if I wear something that's low cut or whatever, put a little derma blend on it, you wouldn't even know that it was even there.
So we do have questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I allowed you to speak. I didn't want to share a screen with you because this is such a serious topic, and it's
Mm-hmm.
your story, and I had no business being in your story. But while I was away, I was jotting down some of the comments that were coming in, and a lot of women and a few men
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
wanted to say how brave you were for sharing your story and how they've lost people to cancer, and it's horrific. It's really, really, it's
Mm-hmm.
horrific. Yes, we have to talk about it, but it's very sad. um
Yes, it is.
some of the other comments were, folks want to know like what happened after you had very detailed conversations with the doctor. What did your treatment look like? Now, I can tell our viewers that we're going to have a four-part series because there's
Mm-hmm.
so much that Karen has to discuss. We can't do it tonight, but we're going to have a
Mm-hmm.
four-part series, and I will post the dates of our continual of the next portion of this
Mm-hmm.
conversation. Um, so that was question two. And question three was, when your hair started to fall out, did all of your hair fall out? And how long did it take before your hair started to grow back?
Oh gosh,
I know that's a touchy
the
subject.
hair. Um,
I know that's a big
the
one.
hair was, ooh, Lord. When my oncologist, she was like, well, we're gonna have a three part chemotherapy, and yes, you will lose your hair. And I was thinking to myself, no, I won't. I was like, no, I won't. You say that, but God's gonna keep my hair on my head. Keep my hair on my head. I'm praying it away. And my hair was ridiculous time. I hadn't put any chemicals in my hair, and my hair was literally like down somewhere close to my waist. It was natural. And I was like, and it wasn't, the weirdest thing, I never went to the hair salon prior to my hair falling out. It wasn't until after my hair fell out, I was like, man, I should have gotten a relaxer and whipped it at least for a couple times, you know. And really, my hair started to fall out gradually. It was
So wait, let me correct.
long and
Uh,
slow.
so gradually, meaning if you brushed your hair, when you brush your hair, you will automatically
Yes.
gather hair in a brush. But was it like an abundance of hair? Like, damn, my hair is coming out like this.
At first, it wasn't. At first, I didn't, because I naturally have very thick hair. So at first, I didn't notice it. It, I didn't really notice.
Hmm.
It was only it's when I started to like run my fingers through my hair, and I would
Oh,
have like, and it wasn't like breaking hair, broken hair. It was like long
great.
bits of hair,
Wow.
like strands of hair.
So it was
Um.
coming out from the root.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
okay.
um, it took a process of maybe between, I was having chemo every 2 weeks. It took from, I think it was like my second, no, it was my second chemo treatment to my third.
Hmm.
That I went from like having a head of hair to having no hair. And I suppose if I had like left my hair alone, I want to say if I didn't comb it and I just let it like sit on my head like a crown, then it probably would have stayed a little bit longer. But because I was going to I was going to the hospital. I was putting hats on. I was like putting hats on my head, and I was fixing my hair up and putting makeup on and going to like chemotherapy. And so I was fixing myself up every 2 weeks. That and like if I went out to the store, I would fix myself up versus like just putting it in a bun. But every time I put that I pulled it back and I put it into a bun or I put it into a ponytail, that ponytail went from like this to this
Shut up.
to this.
Oh,
Like it was just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I remember at one point I brushed my hair and like a whole bunch of hair came out. And I was like, that's it, that's it. And I got the scissors and I started to cut that like a crazy woman. I started to cut my hair off because I was just like, I was so tired of just seeing the slow death of my head
right,
that I
right.
just wanted it to be over. It was like, yeah, because of the fact of it's slowly all coming out. And I've got like this, like when men who are balding and they wear like this little tiny ponytail and it's like a little rat tail.
Yeah, you
That
just
was how my
hold
head,
on for dear life.
yeah, it's holding on for dear life. And I was just like, you know what, that's it. I'm cutting it off. And I cut my hair with some scissors, kitchen scissors. And then I remember, this is how crazy I was. I had to gather myself, but I actually dry shaved my head down with my eyebrow shaver
Yeah.
to get it wasn't even at the skin. It was just like just enough to like get rid of it. I was just like and just shaved it off,
Mm.
not even with clippers or anything. I just had a moment. And and then I looked at myself and I was like, oh God. Like, ooh. Because they didn't tell me, but in the course, and I don't even know really when all the fuzz fell off. Like I really don't know because I really wasn't paying much attention to my head at that point.
Mhm.
I was just kind of like, I accepted, I'm bald. I started wearing wraps and stuff and tying my head. And you know what? It's really hard to tie your head when you're bald because that shit slips off. It does not stay. All of a sudden, every single hat you have is too big.
Mm.
And it's like swimming around on your head. Like it was such a crazy experience. Even buying a wig, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to wear a wig when I don't have even a micro spoonful of hair for it to attach to? Like my wig, I remember one time I went into a store and I I must have like passed by like a mirror or something and I saw myself and my wig was like back here somewhere. And because I didn't realize, when you lose all your hair, all of a sudden your head's always cold.
Yeah.
And even though I had a wig on, I didn't realize that like like the cold that I was feeling was the wig like just shuffling its way back, making its way back. Like,
Oh no!
yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I ended up going and buying like these strips,
Yeah.
these glue strips that like you attach to your bald head and stick on. But then when I would when I would take them off, I was so worried that if I had some hair that they were pulling, like it would like bother my scalp. I mean, it was just crazy. It took me, the crazy thing though, once she's finished the chemo, so she finished the chemo in June, no, the end of June. It was the beginning of July. Um, my hair started to kind of creep back, I would say by August. I started to see like, but my hair, when it grew back, it was like white. It was like white, and it was just like peach fuzz. It was white, and it was stressful. It was really distressful because I had gone through chemo, and on top of it, I found out that how with the key, like my oncologist did tell me that I could have a chance of losing my fingernails and my toenails. I did
Really?
not, yeah, because the chemotherapy, it attacks your
God, I'm
nails,
so
your
sorry.
hair. It You can have sores in your mouth. Um, luckily, I never had any sores in my mouth, but I did have black lines running through my nails. I did have black lines running through my toenails.
Mm,
And I was really worried that my toenails would fall off. They did not. But I found out that like my arm hair fell off. Like, I
mm.
was so glad when I lost all of my armpit hair. I was like, yeah, I don't have to shave my armpits anymore. Like, that was great. Like, but I was not expecting to lose my eyebrow hair and that was at the end. So I lost, because that was the last hair. So even though I had eyebrows, when I went through the chemo, at the tail end of the chemo, the eyebrow hair starts to fall out and your eyelashes start to fall out.
Oh my God.
Now,
That's so bad.
that was like,
Yeah, that's pretty.
because, yeah, it was, and like towards the end, I would say like around April, May, June, those 3 months, I really kind of started to get depressed. Like, I really was depressed because I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't recognize myself. Um, my skin had gotten really pale. It could have gotten pale just because I wasn't leaving the house because of coronavirus, but it had gotten really pale, and I got these dark circles around my eyes.
Mm,
And of course, I was bald, and or I had some picky hair that was still trying to hang on, but it was
mm.
like because I never had somebody shave my hair off, it was like in little tufts, so I looked like a little mangy dog.
Oh my
um
God.
for um for like 4 months I called myself Uncle Fester. um just to be funny, just to really be fun, like laugh at the situation. That's just my personality, is to make fun of myself. So I just made fun of myself. Like, I would call myself Uncle Fester, and I would try
Uncle
very
Fester was
hard when
pretty
I
cool. Okay, Uncle Fester was pretty cool. Let me add that.
Uncle Fester was pretty cool, but he was a ghoul, and I looked like a ghoul. Like, I'm telling you, like, I had those just dark circles, and my skin was like this weird grayish color. It was brownish, grayish, yellowish. It was just weird.
Mm.
And like every single spot that I ever had, it seemed like my face had gotten like all these gray spots. So it was just very strange. And on top of it, with the chemotherapy, in line with the chemo, back in the old days when you would take chemotherapy, you would get really, really sick,
Mm-hmm.
and you would have a lot of vomiting, you would lose a lot of
Yeah,
weight,
yeah.
what they and you would really go through an awful time. What they do is that they pump you with steroids, and then they give you a lot of Benadryl. So the Benadryl, when you're getting the chemo, it slowly allows the medicine to go in your system, but because of the antihistamine, it stops any allergic reactions to the chemotherapy medicine.
Mm.
The steroids, what it does too, it keeps down any allergic reactions in your body. But the only thing with the steroid is that I started to get these like chipmunk cheeks, these a weird kind of face, which, I mean, when you put it in light of living, looking like a ghoul, And being bald and having circles really isn't such a big deal.
No.
But at the time, I was like, what if I stay this way? Because your brain, and you got to think about it, like when you're in chemotherapy, your brain has so much chemicals in it. Some things, you can't really think of things logically, you know, because your brain is not on the same, it's got all the chemicals in it. So you can't really think of
You're not
things
thinking
logic.
rationally.
Right, you're not thinking things rationally. Like you're making, you could be making bigger deals out of things than necessary, or you could be like I was just kind of like a little loopy. And at times, like, I mean, I remember I made myself a pink wig, and because I had seen at this beauty supply store, they had this um, weave set that you could get. And I thought, well, I'm going to glue it onto I'm going to glue it onto this wig cap, and it's going to be pink. Don't you know, I went out with this pink, like, crazy shit on my head and went to the supermarket. And I mean, it was like a crazy, it looked like a crazy person's home ec project. But I thought it was the shit. And I was wearing that wig and I was like, yeah, I'm wearing my pink wig. But yet, like, the pink wig didn't match with my gray skin tone. It was just horrible, but I thought it was like really cool. But when I put it on my head, the the cap was made out of this synthetic stuff that it like irritated my skin. So it was like on top of, I think that was the wig that actually started to crawl back. It was that one. And I was in the supermarket and I'm trying to keep it like on my head and it just wouldn't stay in one place. Like it was just kind of like shifting all over the place. Um, I was very, very fortunate that one of my girlfriends, her best friend, her daughter was a Hollywood wig creator. And she had all these Emmy Awards and Oscars for the best. Like, I suppose she makes wigs for Beyonce and all these people.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked her best friend if her daughter would donate me a wig. And so I got this $1,000 wig.
Wow.
Yes, I never even knew those things they even existed. They don't even call it a wig; they call it a unit.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, and it was like the whole thing was silk. The whole thing was silk, um, net mesh,
Mm-hmm.
whatever,
Mm-hmm.
silk. And I remember the first time I saw this wig, I thought, oh, wow, like I'm gonna put this wig on, and it was like it was really, really long, and I thought to myself, I can't go from no hair to that amount of hair. Like it just felt weird, just even putting it on. I didn't know what to do. I put it on and it just looked strange. I didn't even know what my hairline was anymore. Because, you have your natural hair, like you have your natural hairline, but then when you don't have the hairline, you don't know where it actually is. Like you're kind of like what did I look like before? Where is my hairline? What was it? Trust me, it was like a big deal.
So my question
Um,
to you is, because we're gonna wrap this up because we don't want
uh
to say
huh.
too much because we're spilling into our next conversation.
Yes.
But as we bring this to a close for the evening, what are your parting words? What are your parting words to the viewers?
My parting words
Yep.
are get tested, get tested for that um, that cancer gene. Make sure you get your mammograms done every year, um, especially if you have cancer in your family. My grandmother had cancer. Um, and just don't neglect yourself. Remember, you know, I don't know if any of you have ever seen me before, but my thing now is save yourself. Save yourself. When you save yourself, then you can save the rest of your family. But if there's no you around, you can't save them. So you need to make sure you do what you can do to make yourself whole and protect yourself. You know, if you have had a cancer diagnosis, don't just ignore it. Don't just say, oh, well, it's going to go away. Or I, you know, I'm just going to let it just be. Don't, because there are solutions that are out there and you can live a life. You can go through chemotherapy and you can, it doesn't have to be totally sickening. My chemo was not so bad, and I made it through. My radiologist told me, he said, by the time you're finished with radiology, you're going to hate me. I did. He was true. He was absolutely telling me the truth at the end. But I was glad that he told me I was going to hate him. But like, don't just ignore it. My uncle had stomach cancer, and he just ignored it and let the pain go and go. And stomach cancer is something that could have been
Hmm.
rectified, but he let it go and it spread all over and he died. And I think with any cancer, the soon it every day is a chance that that thing can spread to your lymph nodes. So time is at the essence. You need to make sure that you get on it and get on top of it, and make sure that you go to medical professionals that are qualified, that you feel confident in, not anybody else feels confident, but you feel confident in. And don't go to somebody that drew on a piece of paper. Don't like, you want more information than less information. You want them to tell you, are you sure you don't? When I left that first meeting, every single one of them gave me their business card and said, you know what, if you have any questions when you get home, email me. I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say, that should be the standard of care every woman should get.
We appreciate you, Karen Valentine, and we thank you for being so candid with your experience.
Appreciate you too.
We will speak soon because this
Yes.
conversation we'll continue it soon because this is a four-part
Hmm.
series. There's a lot of information that Karen wants to review with you guys, and so we don't want to have a rushed. This is not a rushed forum, and I have tons and
Right.
tons and tons of comments and questions that are coming
Right.
in. For those who have
Right.
forwarded comments and questions, we will get back to that, to your questions,
Right.
our next segment. But we thank you so much for participating. We thank you for listening. We love you, Karen.
Love you too.
Thank
And
you.
the next segment, if we can start off with the questions,
We
that
can.
would be great. So then I could just,
I have a lot of stuff,
yes,
and stuff is still coming in. So our next
perfect.
segment, we will start with the questions, and then you'll proceed. Okay.
Okay. All right,
All right,
perfect.
Sarah. Love
See you
you.
guys. Love you
Bye.
too. Bye bye.